Welcome to the Top 10 Gardener with Master Gardener Ken Lain. Gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and top 10 advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome your garden host, Ken Lain.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lain, here every week talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. And we are in full spring mode. I was just outside the studio. I've got a beautiful, maybe a 1,200 square feet of wildflowers. They're not in bloom yet, but they are actively growing. It's very exciting to see. I mean, gardeners, we've been pent up way too long. We need to get outside, some fresh air, even if there's a chill in the air, but just fresh air is good for you. And so it looks like that last storm we had, what was that? I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, blew off the pollen. So my allergies do feel a little better. The junipers were going nuts. February was rough, first part of March. And now it looks like that pollen is down. So, but probably something else will take its place, pine trees or something. But I feel better and I want to be outdoors and my wildflowers are growing. My forsythia is in bloom. Purple leaf plums are in bloom. The Bradford pears opened this week beautifully. This large shade tree, 30, 35 feet tall, 12, 15, 20 feet wide. It's a big shade tree in solid, glorious white. I mean, in fact, I think it was storming last week and they decided, yeah, I'm going to bloom anyway. It just feels good. It feels right. And they bloomed and they just got better and better and better as the week progressed. And that's how the spring season is. Here in the mountains of Arizona, we don't just slowly warm up day by day. We add 1 degree till finally spring is here. Now we're going to be as warm today. There's snow tomorrow. It's warm again. It just does this violent back and forth day and night. There could be 50-degree swings in temperature between day and night, especially when the storm comes through. So as soon as you start to see things growing and blooming, they've leafed out, or they've got new flowers, or the evergreens have got new candle tips, or your roses are starting to flush new growth. As soon as you see that, and that'll be in April sometime, the next days, if it hasn't already started, you focus in the lower elevations, the Camp Verdes, Cottonwoods, Sedonas, I would say Mayer, Dewey, Humboldt, you folks, Baghdad, Hillside, Kirkland, Skull Valley, you folks have already started. I mean, spring is here. You should activate your irrigation. So as soon as you start seeing things in bloom, plants are using more moisture. It takes moisture to keep those flowers, whether it's setting a fruit on a peach tree or apple tree or apricot or nectarine or plum, or it's an ornamental tree like a purple leaf plum, which got that pink flower on it right now, or the Bradford pear I just mentioned. It's an ornamental pear tree. It doesn't actually form fruit. It just made there because pear flowers are so pretty white, and the leaves are so just a nice, rich, glossy green. The fall color is bright red. It's got a lot going on for it, but it doesn't form fruit. It's an ornamental flowering pear. As soon as you see flowers, you should activate your irrigation. And for established plants, that is, my landscape's at least 2 years old, you're going to water those plants once a week, a deep soak. That's trees, shrubs, vines, roses, things with a deep root structure, things that are shallow rooted. So let's say flowers, vegetables, maybe that's more your container garden, your lawn might be a different, more frequent schedule. But most of us have trees and shrubs. You want to keep those things healthy. I'd say water those about once a week. As soon as you see things waking up, that's your cue. Oh, Ken said I should turn my irrigation sometime on in April, whenever I see leaves and flowers on the plants. Go for it. And so I'm probably going to activate my irrigation this next week. Maybe this weekend, definitely next week. I'm going to turn it on and set the stage for once a week. I'll move. All my irrigation has been watering in the middle of the day through winter just because it's been cold. I didn't want the lines freezing. So I'll move that back to my spring schedule. And that'll be usually I'll try to water everything before the heat of the day. While I'm doing all the irrigation work, I'm going to set the clock. I'm going to turn it on manually. I'm going to walk the lines and do a maintenance tune-up of my irrigation. make sure the pack rats didn't eat at the head off of an irrigation head, or it didn't break an elbow on the main distribution line. I'll just walk it and maintain it. Your irrigation needs a tune-up like you would before you'd go on a long road trip. You're going to take your car in for a tune-up and an oil change, check the tires. Well, your irrigation needs the same thing before the start of each season. Now's the time to do that. So just be aware. Or if you just don't see, you're just not sure when my things are blooming, when there's leaves out there growing, because plants are using a lot of moisture to keep that new foliage or new flowers going. If you just don't know, whenever you see us hit the 70-degree mark, so when it starts to hit 70 degrees, plants are actively growing, time to turn that irrigation on. And then also you're out of the risk of freezing. So you folks have, some of you, especially the higher elevations, the Groom Creeks and the Highland Pines, those ridge lines, the Seligmans, Ash Forks, you folks, you turn and you drain your system, you cover them, you actually deactivate it. But for those of us in the lower elevation, we tend to keep it going. So mine don't freeze. I have the irrigation going year round. I just move the time when it turns on to midday in the winter. Right now, I'm going to turn it back to, I want to water things before the heat of the day, not going into the evening. I don't want them to be wet going into the dark. But as the light first sunrise comes up, you see already that the daylight's getting sooner and sooner. I want my plants hydrated before the heat of the day. So I'll set that up. Maybe next week I'll cover that in detail. Once I set my irrigation clock, I'll be ready to talk about it. I'll share it on the airwaves. But until then, let's talk about herbs. So herbs, it is so the vegetable and herb season is starting. It is a good time to start putting in fresh herbal plants. There is no reason anyone that gardens in the mountains of Arizona, actually anywhere in the country, should have to ever purchase fresh herbs. I mean, I needed some I was making a frittata for breakfast the other day, and I said I need some garlic greens. And I walked around the garden, picked them and brought them in and used them right there. Oh, they were so good. My mouth's watering just thinking about fresh herbs. Oh my gosh, it's so good. You can grow herbs here, at least in Arizona, better than anywhere else in the country. The herbs love bright days, cool nights, dry. So we don't have all the melting issues with mildew and spotting and overwatering because it's too humid. We're like the perfect place for growing herbs. You can grow better herbs anywhere, in containers, in the ground, wherever. And so I would say the top producers, top sellers, the most popular, at least here at Waters Garden Center, are going to start with rosemary, just because some people like rosemary in the kitchen and some just like it pretty as a landscape shrub. It is pretty and it's in bloom right now. It's a great one. Not as many recipes call for rosemary, but when you do, oh, it's best on the grill. Oh my gosh. We had a roasted ham for Easter dinner. Well, we rotisserized this on the grill on the back deck. And on the tray underneath it, I put some fresh rosemary in that tray, just so it hit the water and you could smell the herbs. Put some lavender in there, some bay leaves. Oh, it was so good. And so that's what you can do with fresh herbs. So rosemary and lavender are kind of the most popular. Sage is probably the most popular in the kitchen. As far as you just use it all the time for a lot of different things. But creeping time. For the summer, well, mimosas, you gotta love mint. So that's spearmint for mimosas, but strawberry mint we have right now, pineapple mint, peppermint, all the mints. Mints are a weed. You can plant that right now and you'll be harvesting. I mean, actually, the more you pick the leaves, the fuller that plant gets. You can plant those now. The main thing with herbs, I noticed my best herb gardens are on the east side of my gardens. I can't say that. Some of my more sensitive herbs, like basil and cilantro, my east side. Rosemary will grow anywhere. Lavender, just about anywhere. Thyme reseeds everywhere. Oregano everywhere. But my best gardens with the best flavors, I just want to go out. My herb garden, not just herbs in the landscape, but my herb garden is on the east side of my house. And it just does magically. And you can have that too. So, Anyway, that's it for this segment on herbs and just starting the planting season. Be right back. Got to bring Lisa Lain in for your garden questions right after this. Water's companion plants for April are purple twist plums, perfume lilacs, columbine, and Arizona gaillardia.
Gaillardia is the perfect mountain perennial with huge fiery flowers on a compact plant.
She loves the heat and super drought hardy.
You can count on this bloomer to show off all summer long in raised beds, containers, or in the garden.
Javelina and rabbit proof. This bloomer is a must-have Arizona plant.
Arizona gaillardia, found at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott. You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join his daily podcast for timely garden advice seasonally right for the gardens. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott or through his website at top10gardener.com. You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain and the Top 10 Gardener podcast. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show.
And we are back with Lisa Lain in the studio. She comes each week with your garden questions. Just what are people talking about? Wow, you got a natural glow about you today. That looks good.
Because I've been running around the garden center.
My hottie gal. You've been married for a lot of years, and you still are the apple of my eye. You still catch my attention in a crowded room. You still, you're still purty, honey. Anyway,
Thank you, dear.
We do radio together as well. We run a company together. So business partners. So anyway, Lisa comes and helps me just field questions. So welcome to the studio, Lisa.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good to be here.
It is.
Good to be here in spring, enjoying. It's a beautiful day today.
It feels like it, yeah.
Yes, I know we got a little bout of cold, and then it looks like it's up into the 70s.
I mean, it could be July, and there's a little bout of cold in the mountain. It could be a hailstorm with 3 inches of hail out there. So you just never know. That's the mountains. That's part of the beauty.
Right. And, people are always concerned, well, can I still plant? Well, yeah, we know it's going to get cold. Yeah, don't throw your tomatoes outside, but yes, of course you can still plant. It's a wonderful time to plant.
The plants we have in the garden, all the fruit trees and the shade trees and the evergreens and the lilacs and the forsythia and the rhododendrons and the azaleas we don't bring those things in at night. They stay out there exposed to the cold. We're trying to acclimate them, that's what we call it.
Toughen them up.
Get them used to our climate. So even the greenhouses, we don't heat. We let them go down to ambient temperature. We just try to keep the frost off of them so they look fantastic all the time. But we're trying to acclimate them too. So we're not bringing them in. I mean, a summer plant, if you're like tomatoes, if you're planting zinnias right now, first of all, we don't have zinnias because it's too cold for them.
Right.
But we do have pansies and all the other spring things. Now is the time to plant those. So you plant them seasonally correct.
Right. Definitely.
It does feel like spring though. Finally, it's
nice.
It's during the day. I finally had just a t-shirt on. And I lost my winter weight, which is kind of good. So I look good in an apron. So we wear aprons at the garden center. For those who've never been, we all have aprons. I'll tell you ideas. It's anyway. And
I don't know
my
where
apron's
you're
thinning. It's the people are going, hey, you look pretty good. Spring's looking good on you. I'm going, well, thank you very much. I feel better about myself and my customers.
That's good. I wish I'd lose my winter weight. I'll have to work on that.
What garden questions do we want? Because I'm not touching the weight thing with you. Moving on.
You have learned something in 36 years.
Right.
I'm impressed. All right. So Cindy's out in Chino. So last year, her apple trees had a lot of culling moth worms in them. Just doesn't want to repeat that. Wants a good crop. She wants to make her applesauce and her apple pie. Without worms. She knows, how do you prevent that?
Yeah, easy. This is easy. Well, it's not easy. It's going to take some work. But if you know what to do, it's not that hard of work. So apples and pears, those two fruits get in them called what we call codling moth. It's a little tiny worm that's actually a moth larva. She comes and lays her eggs on your fruit. The larva stage comes in and burrows its way and lives inside the fruit until it matures, comes back out, burrows its way back out, and then flies around and lays more eggs. So we call them codling moths. We can have up to 2 to 3 waves of codling moths per season because we've
Mm-hmm.
got such a long season. And so she loves to lay her eggs into that pollinating fruit. So as the apples or pears bloom, they're pollinating. There you see bees floating around, moths are floating around, and they're pollinating all the flowers. Well, just as the petals start to drop, she goes, hey, if I were to lay my egg right inside that flower, the fruit will actually form over my egg, and then it's protected from all the ladybugs and all the other things that eat my children, and they'll be good to go. And so the best time to spray, the absolute best, is just as it looks like this, like it's snowing, only with flower petals from your fruit trees. Spray it right then with horticultural oil. It will obliterate them. So it coats that egg. They're always active about right then. There's a repelling action to it, kind of coats the flower to it. So hit them with hort oil. It's organic. It's as safe as you can get, just as the petals drop. Now you've got other, you said 2 to 3 waves. So now you've got smaller fruits and they come back at you again. Oh my gosh, these things are irritating. She'll lay her egg on the outside of the fruit. The larva will hatch, burrow in. Once it's inside the fruit, there's no getting it out. Then burrow back out when it's mature. The only way to know when the next waves of codling moths hit you is by putting up what's called a codling moth trap. You hang a little tiny, it's got a pheromone in there, and a kind of a love attractant for codling moths. And nothing's in there for weeks. All of a sudden you go check that trap and there's like 3 moths in there. No. Where'd they come from? The next night you come in, there's like 10 moths. Like at the end of the week, there's like, the thing is filled with moths. Codling moths are busy. They're making whoopee on my fruits, and they're going to be filled with worms if I don't do something. So that's your cue. Now the Google machine says, codling moths, just hang one, solves all your problems. That is a total lie. All a trap does is a monitoring system to know when do I spray next. Mm-hmm. So when the trap has a lot of moths in it, that's when that's a cue. Spray it right then. And so just about anything will take out a codling moth. So your oils are kind of organic and natural and safe. We've got an inside-outside spray that's good for fruit trees. Come see us if you see that. Get a codling moth trap mainly. So, and if it's early enough, you could probably spray it with hort oil again. I think you can spray horticultural oil up until 85, close to 90 degrees, and then it gets too hot for it. So there's a temperature cutoff that does that. But come see us. We can help you grow worm-free or relatively. You only have a few worms. Something gross. I did bite into an apple once. And only the wiggling body. Half the body was in my mouth. Gross. Half was wiggling the apple. I'm going, okay, that's kind of gross. Moving on. Use a knife.
All right. Our next question is from Lauren. She says, I love the idea of using natural predators to get rid of aphids and other bad insects.
Sure.
But do ladybugs and praying mantis, do they really work well enough out in your yard?
Well, sure they do. Yeah, Lauren, first of all, it's fun. If you got kids, you need those because it's just fun. If you release ladybugs into the yard, you're going to have ladybugs for the rest of the season in your yard. You might, release 500 ladybugs, but every ladybug your kids spot in the yard from that point for the rest of the year, you get credit for. Whether they flew in naturally from 100 miles away or right next door, or you released them, you get credit. I mean, that's just a win. That's like, if you got grandchildren coming to visit, get ladybugs. It's awesome. It's fun to let them crawl around and just release them. But they are winged. They do fly away. So that's a negative. So generally what we say is we have ladybugs, we have light praying mantis now, we have the red wigglers, we've got all the beneficial insects you'd want to release into your yard. We have them here at Waters Garden Center now. You can put them out now. If you see aphids, let's say on your yuccas or your rose bush or your fruit trees or your wherever you see a problem, take the ladybugs, wet down that area where the aphids are. Don't hose them off, just moisten it. And then release the ladybugs at the base of the plant. They're not going to fly away from the mulch or the rocks underneath. They're going to crawl up. And as they crawl up, they're going to find stuff to eat because they're ferocious. And they're going to eat them. And as long as there's food there, they're going to keep eating. As soon as they're done, as soon as that food source is gone or your problem's gone, they're going to take flight and fly to the next available food source. Might be the rose bush next over, or it might be down the street. We don't know, but they're going to be flying around looking for food. Moisture, because they're thirsty. So the moisture keeps them around. So they're going to have a drink and then they're going to have an eat. So those two things, and then release them at night. So they're doing this. If it's just light, they're going to go, oh, the sparkly's over there. Look, I'm going to fly away. But at night, they don't fly at night. So if we release them at the base of the plant, moisten that area first, and then let them go. Praying mantis are different. That's an egg casing. So you put this praying mantis egg case out there, then they release later when it's temperature related. Well, I don't know when that'll be, but it'll be later than
temperature
now.
related.
It's temperature related. Well, we are out of time like that. Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardeners. Be right back after this.
Growing up in Prescott, we knew spring was here when my grandmother's lilacs bloomed. I'm Lisa Waters Lain, and my grandmother would be thrilled with the new Bloomerang purple lilacs at Waters Garden Center. They don't just bloom once in spring, they bloom again in summer. Mine bloomed 3 times last year, making spring last well into fall, and just $29.99. Come check out all the heavenly new sights and scents that are making this spring the most beautiful ever. Lilacs like Grandma used to grow and better. Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
You're listening to Ken Lain, aka the Top 10 Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week in Prescott at Waters Family Garden Center. Listen daily as he answers the top 10 questions of the week, streaming on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Garden Show with garden expert Ken Lain. Join the conversation daily as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Or visit face-to-face throughout the week where he can be found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
You know, at the start of the show, I'd mentioned herbs. I was using fresh herbs already. Parsley's already up. Sage is starting to grow. Chives are actively growing. My bay laurel's already starting to show some new buds coming up. Mint underneath all that matted brown material is starting to grow. So we're starting to activate perennial herbs, the things that come back year after year. And most herbs at this elevation are perennial. There's a couple that aren't. I would say fennel, really, if that heart, the root of that plant freezes solid, it can die back. You have to replant it. But fennel is one of those. Cilantro, although cilantro reseeds so easily. And then basil. All the rest of them, your thyme, lavender, rosemary, all these things, they are all perennial. Mints, it goes on and on and on. French tarragon, all of these things are perennials. They keep going. Right now, we've got all of the herbs, the core herbs. But as we get closer and closer to Mother's Day, that middle of May, we'll have every type of herb you can think, from marjoram to, just everything's going to be there, from medicinals to edible to culinary. We'll have them all. And so it'll be, and multiple varieties. We won't just have sage. We'll have 6 varieties of sage, from variegated to your traditional culinary, all the above. So there's a seasonality. There's a crop grow. So we actually have a 52-week calendar, and we say, when do we want the cachet pot, containered tomatoes to be ready to go? Well, we've got tomatoes now, but they're just a few varieties because it's too early to plant them. We have them in for those folks that love to plant early in a container, and they put it in the garage at night and they roll it out during the day. We've got tomatoes for those folks. It's not the largest variety. The end of this month will be every variety, every shape, every heirlooms to traditionals, to everything in between, and every size. That'll be in the end of April through May. That's the peak season. But we've got a grow calendar. We go, okay, week number 23, we're going to have this coming off out of the greenhouse. So it's all about crop rotations. That is, there's only so much space on the farm. You got to actually get the most out of it. So we can't have lilacs all the time. if we're going to have lilacs, let's use this space, and then we'll use those and bring them into the garden center right now as we speak. The best lilac varieties are right now. And so you'll get the most of them. When that space is freed up to the farm, we put something in there right away. I mean, like the next day, crews are in there plugging the next crop. And so you'll see this rotation coming through at the garden center over and over throughout the season. That's why it's best not to just hit a garden center once in spring and that's it, because you'll just get that spring mix. But you kind of want a summer mix. In a 4-season climate, you want some mums of autumn. You want some echinaceas, coneflowers, Mexican hats, the perennial selection of the summer selection. And then right now you're getting that early spring season, things that love the chilly nights, but this is when you see Linton rose. You won't see, or hellebores. You won't see that any other time of year. It's just now. So you're just seeing all those, California poppies just came in this week. They're in full bloom. They're the time to go now. You won't see those in 3-4 weeks. So there's a season, there's an ebb and flow to things. And so if you're doing wildflowers, I mentioned California poppies, a classic wildflower. You should feel the urgency. So wildflowers have germinated, this if you're doing by seed, and they are actively growing. You still have, I would say, maybe 2 to 3 weeks left to be able to start wildflowers just naturally out in the yard, spreading the seed, watching them grow. So I just put in property I'm putting together out in Chino Valley. I want to call it Poppy Seed Ranch. And so I just spread several thousand poppy seeds out there in the front land. It's a 2-acre property. I'm putting it on the market here in a couple of weeks or so. And I just want those poppies to be growing. And I think they'll be in bloom about the time I put this thing up for sale. It's going to be fun to watch. Poppy Seed Ranch. It's going to be pretty. So anyway, you can put that out there for about another 2 weeks. And then it's going to be too warm to start wildflowers. You're going to need to acclimate. You'll need to take those wildflower seeds and throw them in the freezer for a couple of days and bring it back out. Put it back in for a couple of days. And by May 1, that's the process you have to do. You can still have wildflowers, but it's so easy right now. If you don't want to start by seed, I just don't want to wait. I want poppies now. Well, then come in and buy the plant. We've got them. We started them 2 months ago, and now they're in bloom. You've got Candy Tuft, another native. We started that 2 months ago, actually last year, and now they're in bloom. So it's a great little native, white flowering evergreen perennial. You can start by plant, and that's a great way to go for smaller garden areas. We've got a lot of flowers in stock right now, but if you need large areas, like I did the front acre in California poppies, not just in orange and yellows and reds and whites. It's a beautiful mix. It's going to be glorious, and it'll keep the weeds down. There'll be a lot going on for it. There, I wanted to start by seed because I needed so many plants. But just a backyard container, front entrance to your house, start with plants. You get more enjoyment and instantaneous starting now. Okay, that's it for this segment. Be right back with Lisa Waters Lain in with her segment right after this.
Waters Garden companion plants of the month are lilac, poppy, purple plum, and our white night candy tuft.
Masses of fragrant white flowers cover mounds of perennial green foliage.
Extreme heat and cold tolerant, this award winner repeatedly blooms without deadheading for super easy care.
Butterflies, bees, hummingbirds are going to love your backyard again.
White Night Candy Tuft can only be found at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott. The Top 10 Gardener, your source for timely garden advice seasonally correct for the garden, guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
And we are back with Lisa Waters Lain. She comes each week and just shares her garden insights. Just what is she seeing? What's tickling her heart? What does she see? Just what looks great in her gardens, her neighborhood. Plus, I just like sharing studio time with her. So, Lisa, welcome back into my world. The studio.
Your world.
Not, well, we work together every day, so
I think it's our world.
how do I make that more romantic?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to work again, honey. I'll see you at dinner.
I was saying we hardly ever see each other at work, so it's
We do give each other our own space
Yes,
or
we
lanes.
do.
So I think that's how you run a small business. It's either going to destroy your marriage or it's going to be the best thing ever. It can go both ways, but you better respect
depending upon the
each
day
other.
too.
Depending on the day or the stress. So, but we work pretty well together.
We do.
It's a good family business.
Mhm.
I'd do it again.
I would too. It's
Yeah,
actually been
right.
very good to us.
It has.
Yeah.
Garden center business been very, very good to us.
No.
I'm doing voices. You better take over now. So I see you got an amaryllis there. It's stunning.
So
We should show that off.
a couple of weeks ago, I brought in just the bulb.
Yeah.
And we talked about it and said these are going to be amazing. They're going to be gorgeous. And so I brought one in that's blooming.
For you
Just
folks
to
on
show
video,
people.
you better back it up. The flower's too big on the screen.
Isn't that pretty? So this is
Crazy.
just one of the varieties. I think we had 4 different varieties in, but absolutely gorgeous. And literally you do nothing.
Nothing.
So
Blooms
watch
like
it.
this for a month and a half and nothing.
And it's gorgeous. And I know we still have some left from our first load, but we're also bringing some in
For Mother's Day.
probably fairly soon here for Mother's Day, but absolutely gorgeous. Just beautiful to watch it grow.
It has the amaryllis. Just describe those folks that are driving down or going over to Trader Joe's or wherever. So an amaryllis bulb is like it's basically like a tulip, only on absolute steroids. So it's 10 times larger than a tulip bulb. So we've dipped it in wax and we put a wire base at the bottom so it stands up straight on a table or a desk or whatever. Great gift for spouse, great gift for a colleague, great gift, just a great gift, or just for you. Skip a gift, something fun for you as a gardener. And then the amaryllis will sprout up and it will have this 1 to 1.5 foot tall stalk. And then these clusters of flowers. This has got 4 ginormous flowers, and then more bulbs are.
It's got like 2 or 3 more
coming out. So this will be at least a foot across, covered in a flower bouquet. It's a living, breathing bouquet, but because we've dipped this bulb in wax, you never water it. You never care for it. In fact, it looks like this one's actually coming up with a second stalk. This might actually bloom over 2-3 months is what will happen. But amaryllis are famous at Christmas. We're trying to make them famous at Easter and at Mother's Day. And so we've got some that are dipped in rose blossoms. We've got some that are dipped in moss. The Mother's Day ones are going to have moss with some succulents coming off the side. They're just cute as can be. Oh my gosh, gardeners are going to go nuts. So amaryllis, that is pretty. Does it smell?
I don't know.
They don't smell.
My smeller's off, so I can't tell you.
They don't smell. They just.
But they're
look pretty.
beautiful and just so easy to take care of and enjoy. But I wanted to show people. We showed them the bulb. This is what they turn into.
You folks on Spotify and Apple, you just get to see it all.
You have to come into the store and see what they look
into
like.
the store even better. Thanks for sharing that again.
Sure.
Perfect.
So we are still having a busy. So we've had trucks after trucks after trucks. We unloaded one just this morning.
Back hurts. Yep.
So we unloaded one today that has more of our fruit trees on it.
Yeah.
So more of those specialized fruit trees, the cocktails, the 4-in-1 apples, 3-in-1.
Any
the
dwarfs?
pears.
That's got more. We ran out of dwarf. We true genetic dwarf. We need dwarf trees.
We got dwarf nectarines and dwarf
Nice.
peaches in several of them.
Good.
So we have a really good supply of those dwarfs, which are just so fun to grow, whether you do them in a container or out in your yard. So easy to pick the fruit from because they're all right at your level.
Or protect from frost or
protect
whatever.
from frost.
Keep the animals off.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So definitely have a good selection of those. We have an amazing selection of the KV plums, the ornamental plums, which are blooming right now throughout town. They have kind of that pinkish blossom to them. They put on the burgundy leaf. This is a terrific tree for here. It's kind of a no muss, no fuss tree. Once it's established, it's just tough as nails. So
I was going to feature that this week in our article, but we didn't have enough when we ran out. So I'm glad to hear we got more. I'll feature them maybe next week. I'll just go purple leaf plum, purple. I forget what name I gave it, but
something wild, I'm sure.
Something fun that describes it better than plum tree that blooms.
Okay. We also have a great selection of red buds. We have weeping red buds. We have Merlot red buds. We have vanilla twist red buds. Eastern Oklahoma's, just a really nice selection of all those red buds, which will be probably blooming within the next week or
I
two.
think Prescott Valley was starting to they're starting to crack colors out there. So
Yeah.
the warmer areas,
It's starting
especially
to
where
show
the
already.
sun is showing,
Mhm.
I think the commercial setting areas, that's a tough plant.
Yeah.
They put it in commercial settings, asphalt and trucks.
Mhm.
It was starting to crack color. So
Yeah.
I think by this time next week, they'll be in full
They'll be
bloom.
in full bloom.
At the lower elevations.
Gorgeous
especially.
when they bloom. Crab apples. Crab apples are probably becoming one of my more favorite flowering trees. They just have that really big blossom to them. They really make a show.
Yeah, brighter colors.
Right now, the spring snow are blooming at the store.
Nice.
Oh, so fragrant. You walk by and you're like, I'm just going to stand here for a while
therapy session
and enjoy this. But we have royal raindrops. We have prairie fire. Radiant crab apples. We've got the spring snow. We've got some they call it a Sprite. It's a real mini little one. So nice selection of those. So blooming trees, fruit trees, it is premium time to come pick out what you want. We also have a wonderful selection of cool season veggies, which we're still in that. It's not tomato time yet for most tomatoes, of you.
Though.
We have them.
Peppers.
But you got to have a greenhouse or a way to protect them.
Yeah.
But we have lots that you can put in now and not have to worry about protecting your kale, your lettuces, broccoli, all those kind of cool season stuff. Peas, good to put in now. Wonderful selection of herbs. So I love herbs. I think they're just totally underutilized in our area. And so many of them are perennial. I mean, they're coming back year after year after year. Now, we don't have the true warm one, basils, those guys, but we got the ones you can definitely put out now. The sage, the rosemaries, the lavenders, mints, lots of mints, lots of oreganos, lots of thyme. And it's a wonderful time to get it going. And you can grow those in containers. You can grow them in some people like to do an herb garden or a raised herb garden bed. Just so many different ways to use them. You can put them in your pots with your pansies. I mean, you just use them so many different ways.
Yeah, it's true.
We're getting some wonderful hanging baskets that are now coming in. The calabacoa. Sometimes
it was exciting to see this come off the truck. The first big load of big showy flowers.
So a lot of calabacoa, which is the million bells. Some people know them as million bells. This looks like a small petunia, but my gosh, they just bloom, bloom, bloom all season long. Great plant for here. Some gorgeous hanging geranium plants. The ivy geranium and the regular geraniums that are in. So
those will take a bit of frost.
Yeah.
So they're not going to die with, hard freeze, maybe cover them or bring them indoors, but they love growing this time of year.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So a lot of color, lots of pansies and violas, unique colors, not just your blue.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got some really specialized colors and they're really, really pretty. In the perennials, we're starting to get our Salvia greggii in. For those people that want to attract those hummingbirds into their yard, that's a great one for it.
Gardenias, I saw those were starting to bloom.
They're blooming. So, I kind of just stand by them and smell them too.
Therapy session. If you feel stressed, come to the garden center.
Definitely.
We tell the staff, if your back hurts, go smell the crab apples. Get a bad customers, go smell the gardenias.
Yeah.
If you need some therapy. Take some you time.
Right.
And then come back to work.
And then get back to work. So a lot of azaleas are starting to bloom right now too. So you got to come in and check all this stuff out.
So we'll show them one last time.
Okay. There's the amaryllis.
But we are out of time. Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardeners. We'll be right back with more garden tips, tricks, and insiders, garden hacks right after this.
Water's Garden companion plants of the month are lilac, poppy, columbine, and our purple twist plum.
This Arizona plum is the ideal purple tree between evergreens.
Blooms in a profusion of pink flowers that precede the deep purple foliage.
Large enough to use as a front yard tree and behaved enough to use as a street tree.
Plant pairs flanking gateways, driveways, or an orchard-like rows to screen neighbors.
Purple twist plum can only be found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Look for more tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts through Ken's website. Additional shows of this podcast, read his weekly garden column, or follow him on Facebook, Instagram at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show with Ken Lain. Listen to Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts guaranteed to make your gardens more beautiful than ever this year. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
And we are back. Here's the beauty of having a studio right here at the Garden Center. And when you got friends who you're talking to, you can invite them into the studio, into the podcast. And so I've got Ken Feld. He's the COO of Tag4Life. Tag4Life. Did I get that right, Ken?
Yes.
Ken Feld. Okay, great. He is going to be here at Waters Garden Center next weekend. That's the 13th. That's next Saturday. He's going to be here for the garden class. And he's got an important new nonprofit he's starting that is just, we fully support. Lisa and I are all on board because you're making a difference. It's called Tag4Life. And you're helping people, you're helping first responders identify how to help people when they're in crisis, when they can't remember what their meds are or what surgeries they've had or what's going on. It's tagged. It's right there. All they got to do is scan it and it just comes up. It's saving lives. So Ken is launching this new thing. It was so important. I invited him up to Prescott to just help our locals know more about Tag4Life. Welcome to the program, Ken Feld.
Ken, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
So how did you get started with this? Tell us a background on what started this whole Tag4Life thing, and then maybe explain it better than I did to the listeners.
Sure. It all started back in 2020. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and was treated at the Mayo Clinic. And in the course of my treatment, the therapy that I was on destroyed my liver. And my liver was no longer able to process the toxins and the poisons that it's supposed to, which made me a candidate for a liver transplant. And actually, it was one of those things that became necessary to save my life. I wasn't going to die of cancer because that was gone. It was the liver disease and liver that was going to kill me. In October, I actually received my new liver. October 16th, received a liver.
Congratulations. Wow.
Part of that is the realization I'm going to be on meds the rest of my life. For the rest of my life, I'm going to be on anti-rejection medicines and whatnot, just to keep my body from rejecting my new organ. And obviously that's very important to me to have that available in the case that I can't speak for myself. Someone needs to be able to know what's going on with me. Part of the organization at Mayo is we have a post-transplant support group, which I became a member of, and met a gentleman there who had founded Tag4Life a year or so before I met him. And we got together and started talking about where we were going to go as an organization. We had focused with the Mayo Clinic with their transplant patients. And it occurred to us that very quickly that the opportunity was so broad with people who are medically vulnerable, whether it's asthma or allergies or diabetes or whatever medical condition they have. The need for a first responder or somebody to have access to that information could be life-saving. If not life-saving, certainly will decrease the amount of time it takes to get the care someone needs. So I joined Tag4Life as COO and have worked since January with Ben and the rest of the organization, and we're all liver transplant patients.
Wow.
So the whole company is either a combination of cancer survivors and liver transplant recipients. We formed Tag4Life to now spread out the education as well as the medical IDs that are needed to the medically vulnerable and socially disadvantaged people in our community.
Now, I can see this as being way more than just transplant folks. I mean, I've had my mother live with me. If you've got, I don't even know what my wife's medications are. They always ask you your medications, what vitamins, what surgeries. I can't even remember my own, much less the milligrams or brand. I don't know.
That's a great, and I'll share with you two stories. after my transplant, my sister came as one of my caregivers because a liver transplant is a pretty serious surgery, and you need help for the first couple of weeks. When she was taking care of me, we were discussing the medical IDs and my need for one for the rest of my life. And she was thinking, she goes, well, she was just recently in a little car accident in Lake Tahoe. And when the paramedics got there, she forgot to tell them that she was allergic to NSAIDs.
Ouch. Wow.
Something as simple as that. And she goes, you need one, but I need to get one.
Yeah.
Because I completely forgot with all the adrenaline going and the chaos and worrying about my car. The paramedics asked her if she was okay. Yeah. Is there anything you're allergic to? No. And then after the fact, realized that had something been wrong and they weren't aware of her allergy to NSAIDs, it could have been really catastrophic.
Yeah.
The other thing that really resonated with me was my mother-in-law lives with me. And if something were to happen, the cat trips her or she falls or slips, and the paramedics show up and they go, okay, Ken, what do we have? I would say, well, her name's Maria Serna. She's about 85 years old.
Yeah. Wow.
She's had a heart valve transplant, 2 knee replacements, and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know her doctors. I don't know her prescriptions. I don't know her. I don't know anything. And if my wife's not available, my mother-in-law doesn't know either, because my wife is the one that takes care of all that.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me, it's like, that, are you serious?
Tag4Life right there. I can see travel. Prescott's a travel town. So if you're overseas and you need help at a clinic in South Korea, Japan, or London, and you walk in going, I got this skin thing right here. They're going to tell us your medical. Oh, that's at home. All I have are these in my overnight bag. Tag4Life. What is a tag? What is that? What is that ID thing? What you're going to be handing some of these out next week.
Correct.
What is that? What do people look for?
We have one thing is a wallet card that has a QR code.
Okay.
That when scanned, a first responder or anybody, you yourself could scan your own card and it pulls up your profile.
So you get a website landing page. It goes, here it is. Boom, for Ken Feld.
And that is your
site.
Your emergency contacts.
Brilliant.
Vital information, your prescriptions, your doctors, whatever. It's your profile. So you control the data, unlike the older style of medical tags, IDs, which are the clunky metal engraved bracelets that really nobody would like to wear if you're allergic to NSAIDs or whatever. I would not wear one, even though I would have to wear one, right?
Yeah.
I would. So the first ID that we offer and we provide to the community is the wallet card. And it's interesting. I can't share it over the video, but when I left Mayo, which is really kind of interesting, it was $1 million surgery, Ken, for my transplant. I left there with a business card type of identification that said, this person has had either a pancreas, liver, lung, kidney, or other organ transplant. If I am in the emergency room, please call Mayo. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Wow. Oh my gosh.
This is the best you can do. And I'm supposed to keep this in my wallet for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And we just realized that there's that real need for this in the community, not just for us, but for over 100 million people in this country have some sort of acute medical condition.
Yeah.
Where this could be extremely valuable.
I mean, not just acute. I'm thinking we just had some aid workers in Gaza hurt, killed, or missionaries, or just traveling abroad or with friends on a cruise, and you get sick, you can go to the cruise doctor and go, hey, here's my ID. So there's a business card I want to give. We're down to 1 minute. I want to give you time to promote where to look at that. And then what time you're going to be here at the Garden Center next week. Just the last minute's all yours. Go for it.
And then we also have the sport bands, it's a neoprene, really nice looking sports band that nobody ever recognized, but it has the insignia that first responders see. Yeah. And they know when they flip it over.
QR code?
There's the QR code.
I love it. That's great. So where do people go? And then when are you going to be here next week? So April 13th.
Correct. We'll be there all day. So
Okay.
from the time you open till the time you throw us out,
Great.
we're going to be registering and giving the community the ID cards, and there's no cost. We are a nonprofit organization, so we rely on donations and the people get involved with us. But
And if folks want to donate, where do they donate at?
well, we do have a website at tag4life.org, and then we'll be available, of course, next Saturday to accept donations if anybody is there and wants to help us out.
That's awesome.
Or,
And I appreciate you being here. This is we're out of time, but this is very important, I think, for the community. And you'll be here at Waters Garden Center next Saturday, the 13th, all day. Come get your free medical ID at Waters Garden from Tag4Life. Tag, the number 4, forlife.org. Donate, respond, learn more. Ken Feld, thanks for being a friend and doing such important work.
and thank you very much.
Bye. Waters Garden companion plants of the month are lilac, poppy, purple plums, and our songbird columbine.
This graceful beauty dances in the shade of the garden, holding its head high, smiling back at you.
This bloomer comes back each spring with lacy green foliage, promptly followed by amazing two-tone flowers.
An excellent cut flower that is both deer and rabbit resistant.
So hardy, some varieties naturally call Arizona home.
Songbird columbine can only be found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Thanks for tuning in to the Top 10 Garden Show. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So it is hard to believe how quickly an hour goes by as we're sharing garden content, time with friends, learning about the community, how to get more out of your gardens this spring. This is where your garden space, we have microclimates. So your front yard's a little different than your backyard. Your east exposure is different than your north exposure. There's differences in your garden, in your neighborhood, in your community, and in the towns. And so if you've gardened other places, gardening here, at least in the mountains of Arizona, is completely different. And so the water's more alkaline, the sun is more intense, the wind is really windy, not just it's ferocious. That's dry, yet cool, yet super hot, yet. So you got to learn your garden space. And where do you go for that? I have too many folks see a pretty plant. So this morning, I was sitting doing my my porcelain reading on my digital device. I won't say where. And they just invented a new glow-in-the-dark petunia. Okay, I haven't seen such a thing yet. It might just be, fake news, probably is. But if it's something new in the marketplace, I'm going to see it at the show trials. We call them garden trials. I'm going to see them at trade shows. I'm going to talk to friends that are growing them because I hang out in that world. I've not seen that yet. It was just invented back in September of 23. It's a brand new plant, but if plants will glow in the dark, I will have them here at the garden center, and I want to play with those. But I think it was just a fake news story. So many folks read something on their device or through their Instagram feed or TikTok feed, and they go, "I want one of these," and they show it on their phone and go, "Well, you can't have that. I don't sell that here." "Well, fine. I'll order it online." "Well, fine. Go right ahead and fail that way if you'd like. That doesn't grow here. That's why we don't sell it here. And so it's not going to thrive. We want plants that actually can take our environment and just thrive and grow and do you proud, not be a struggle. And I'm always feeling like I'm inadequate as a gardener because this plant just will not take off." And so you need, in a dry climate, what you'll find is you read the national tag on how big a pine tree or fruit tree or flower grows, or you've grown geraniums there and you try to grow them here. What you'll find is because of the altitude and the dryness and the intensity of the sun and the alkalinity, that plants are about 20, 25% smaller than you're used to in other parts of the country. So your Austrian pines or Oregon green pines or Deodar cedars from California grew so much faster, bigger, stronger. But here they're about 20% smaller. The leaves will be a little smaller. It'll be noticeable. And so now how do you get information on this? How I want a shrub that gets hip high, but that's how I grew it in Ohio. And now I grow it here and it's only 2.5 feet, not 3 feet tall. What happened? Well, you need research. Find local resources, not Google. Google will tell you the national stuff, or AI will just tell you ChatGPT will tell you the national stuff. But here you want the local stuff. Top10plants.com. That's local sources. Top10plants.com. Those are our plants. You want to see what's new in stock this week. That's our website. But the signage that we put together for that, the descriptions are ours. This is how big it grows here. This is what you can expect from here. Our signage at the garden center, those signs are not just print whatever's on Google. These are how we find them growing in your neighborhood, how they're going to perform here. So local resources are better for you. And then next weekend, I guess, April 13th, come see Tag4Life, Ken Feld and the group there. Get your own free Tag4Life medical ID. They'll be here all week, all Saturday next week. Throughout the week, Lisa and I camp out here at Waters Garden Center. Love talking to fans of the show. Waters companion plants for April are purple twist plums, perfume lilacs, columbine, and Arizona gaillardia.
Gaillardia is the perfect mountain perennial with huge fiery flowers on a compact plant.
She loves the heat, super drought hardy.
You can count on this bloomer to show off all summer long in raised beds, containers, or in the garden.
Javelina and rabbit proof. This bloomer is a must-have Arizona plant.
Arizona gaillardia, found at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott. If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Top 10 Garden Podcast. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.